Hey there guys, how are you today, and welcome to another episode of I Ask Twitter, the series where I ask a question on Twitter about Formula 1, and based on the answers I get, I make a video. So, this weekend is going to be Fernando Alonso's last race in Formula 1, at least for now. He has said in the media that he's keeping all options open for a couple of years' time, but at least for now, this is going to be his last race in Formula 1, the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. He has 32 F1 victories to his name, 2 World Championships and 22 pole positions. But what is Fernando Alonso's greatest moment in Formula 1? So I asked Twitter, and now we're going to talk about all the answers. So a very popular answer I got was Valencia 2012. Of course, in the 2012 season, Ferrari gave Fernando Alonso and his teammate Felipe Massa a pretty uncompetitive car. And in the European Grand Prix of 2012, kinda Alonso's home race, because it was taking place in Spain, he only qualified in P11, which is pretty poor by his standards. But he had a fantastic race, won the Grand Prix. Of course, Vettel and Hamilton both failed to finish, but he made great overtakes on the Mercedes drivers. He made a great overtake on, I believe, Roman Grosjean after a safety car period. That really reminisced of me, and it was a great victory, an emotional victory, and I just remember him stopping on his parade lap at the end of the race by the marshals, picking up the Spanish flag. That's a memory in Formula 1 that I remember for a long time. And talking of 2012, of course, we do have to talk about the Malaysian Grand Prix, probably one of Alonso's more shock victories. So he started in P8 in what seemed like a very uncompetitive car. He had struggled at the Australian Grand Prix at the start of that season as well. But in wet and dry conditions, so in mixed conditions, he was able to win the Grand Prix for Ferrari, sending the Italian fans into raptures, really making them happy. He had a great battle with Sergio Perez in the Sauber, so of course that was certainly not a battle we expected to see for victory at that Grand Prix. But the Spanish driver Fernando Alonso was able to put it off, showing what he can do in an uncompetitive car and showing why he is one of the greatest. And you know what, I think 2012 as a whole season, apart from the fact that he ultimately didn't win it, should go down as one of Fernando Alonso's greatest moments. The whole season should be one of Fernando Alonso's greatest times. Moving on, we have to talk about the Hungarian Grand Prix of 2014. So of course this is a couple of seasons later. Ferrari still have an uncompetitive car, this time in the hybrid era, but he was able to fight for victory in quite a crazy race. Of course you had Lewis Hamilton in this very strong Mercedes starting at the back, but Alonso was leading until about 3 laps to the end when Daniel Ricciardo overtook him in the Red Bull, and that was a pretty crazy race, and it was great to see Fernando Alonso really up there fighting for the victory. And if we're honest, we haven't seen him fight for the victory that much since then. Moving on now to probably one of Fernando Alonso's greatest moments, the Brazilian Grand Prix of 2005. Yes, it was won by Juan Pablo Montoya, and yes, there was a McLaren 1-2 with Raikkonen second, but third place was enough for Fernando Alonso to win the World Championship at such a young age. Only his 4th season in Formula 1, I want to say. 2005, the Renault was only the second best car that season. I think the McLaren was stronger overall, but just not reliable enough. And Alonso was able to win the championship the first time since Hakkinen won it in 1999 that Michael Schumacher didn't win the world title. And that really showed a change in Formula 1 era, to be honest. And really showed Formula 1 moving with the times, and Fernando Alonso was the start of that. And then talking of his championship wins, we have to talk about 06 as well. And ultimately he showed who's the boss. I think the period of 2000 to about 2006 was all about Schumacher v Alonso versus Raikkonen. Those were the top 3 drivers in those times, and Montoya as well. But winning the championship in 2005 and 2006 really showed the world who is boss. And 2006 was a direct fight with 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher, and he beat him. Renault beat Ferrari, and Alonso beat Schumacher, and then he moved to McLaren for 2007. Now let's have a talk about how that worked out. So in 2007, of course, we had the Spygate controversy, and I would say this is a pretty serious thing. Some people say this is one of Alonso's best moments. So there was a lot of controversy at that year's Hungarian Grand Prix. Lewis appeared to block Fernando Alonso, didn't let him through during qualifying, and Alonso got a pretty harsh revenge later in qualifying during Q3, when in the pit box he kind of held Hamilton up, meaning Alonso was able to take pole position and Hamilton wasn't able to complete another lap. Still, Hamilton had a good enough time for pole once Alonso's penalty was taken into effect. But then Alonso was definitely involved in the Spygate scandal, I would say, in 2007, which ended up in McLaren being disqualified that year and Alonso leaving the team at the end of that season. And we then have to go to Fuji 2008 for another great Fernando Alonso season. I think 2007 is even though Alonso only missed out on the title in 07 by a point, 2007 was pretty poor by his standards, in the sense he had an awful relationship with Hamilton and the team. It didn't do him any favours. But we have to now go to Fuji 2008. He was back to Renault for that season, and he was having a pretty difficult year in a fairly uncompetitive car. He did win, but we should put that in quotation marks, the Singapore Grand Prix. Tell me in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. But he also won the Japanese Grand Prix. True top drivers Hamilton and Massa did basically crash with each other and took each other out of the points that race. But Alonso was able to battle Kubica, who was in a particularly competitive car, for victory, and was able to win that Grand Prix. Moving on, we have to think about the Korean Grand Prix of 2010. It was such a tight season with the Red Bulls, Ferrari and McLarens all fighting for the title. 5 drivers fighting for it, to be honest. We've got Vettel, Webber, Hamilton, Button and Alonso. Okay, we know Alonso missed out in the end to Vettel, but Korea 2010 was the high point of Alonso's seasons. Yes, you could say he got lucky with Button having a poor race, and Red Bull's double DNF with Webber crashing out and Vettel breaking down. But it was a really important victory for Fernando Alonso in what was also a fairly uncompetitive car, and really did give him a good shot at that year's championship. Now, going back in his career a bit to the Hungarian Grand Prix of 2003, his first ever victory, also not in the best car. He was the youngest Grand Prix winner at that time, of course. Now, since then, obviously, it's certainly been eclipsed by Max Verstappen. In that race, he took pole position in the Renault, and he even managed to lap Michael Schumacher, and he beat Raikkonen by about 17 seconds. Really impressive. He was also, another moment from that season, he also became the youngest ever pole sitter, and that was from Malaysia in 2003. Now, moving on, more in the Renault, San Marino 2005. He held off Ferrari's Michael Schumacher in a close battle, of course. Lotus Tifosi at the race in San Marino in 2005. Really close racing. And yes, I know the Ferrari wasn't quite close enough at that point, but that's when the tide was really starting to change in that season. And ultimately, Alonso's fantastic defensive driving held off a charging Michael Schumacher, and he was able to win that race. Moving on, we're going to now talk about China 2013 in the Ferrari. He started in 3rd place, but he was able to win the race, beating Kimi Raikkonen and Hamilton, who both started in front of him, putting him in an early contention for that year's championship. Not that it really played out to his advantage in the end, but it was a good race, some good overtaking by Alonso, and a dominant race where he also showed he can look after his tyres very effectively. Finally, we have to talk about the last 2 years, I would say since 2015, since he moved to the McLaren team, McLaren Honda 2015 to 2017, and then of course McLaren Renault in this final season 2018. And I think one of the things that I've liked about Alonso, and people on here have liked, is some of the battles he's been having, particularly with Sainz. So Robbie mentions the USA Grand Prix 2017, the great battle with Carlos Sainz, and in general Alonso's been having lots of midfield battles with some of the other drivers while in a very uncompetitive McLaren. We've even seen him battling people like Hamilton at last year's Mexican Grand Prix. So Alonso has still showed he has it in him to race. And I've liked it also seeing him battle with Sainz quite a few times over these last few years. It's kind of cool because Sainz saw Alonso as a hero, obviously both being Spanish. And it's kind of cool seeing them battle, and now Sainz is going to be flying the Spanish flag at McLaren next season. So yeah guys, that's what all the options people have been talking about. all of those, tell me in the comments what do you think has to be Alonso's best moment. Now I want to talk about what I would say is one of his best moments. Of course, I could talk about one of the championships, or one of the times he came close to a championship, or some of his good wins. And I want to talk about Spain 2013. I guess we should also talk about Spain 06, where he won at his home race as well. But Spain 2013, I think he only started in 5th place, but overtook all the top drivers in the first few laps, and was able to take a fairly dominant victory at his home race. And you know what? It's pretty sad that May 2013, or whenever that was, is the last time Fernando Alonso, one of the greats in Formula 1, won a race. You know, I'm now 20. I only turned, 15 then. That's 5 years ago. Right? That is so crazy to think. Alonso hasn't won for that long. But his last victory in Formula 1, assuming he doesn't win this weekend, probably has to go down as one of his best. So yes, in the comments down below, I want you to tell me 2 things. 1, where do you think Alonso ranks amongst your time greats? I think he is fairly high, but I don't think he's the highest in the current generation. I think Hamilton is better than him, but I think he is better than Vettel. And 2, and this is more about my channel, tell me in the comments down below what ideas you have for future I Ask Twitter questions. And on that note, I will see you guys next time.